We're talking about intimacy today. When I think about intimacy, I think about it on three levels. I think about it physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Kind of how most things should be thought about with those three planes. And what what this video is basically about is I hold the standard that I'm holding out for somebody who can activate all three. And that's not a standard that I'm willing to compromise on. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you've never seen my face before, my name is Lauren. I am your resident intuitive baddie. And this pretty much this topic was sparked by a conversation that I had with a friend a few days ago. I let it sit for a few days, but now I want to talk about it. And basically, to sum up the conversation without getting too into the details, we were talking about we were talking about casual encounters, and I had said something. I was basically talking about how I don't hold physical intimacy too high. Um, and when I said that, I basically had said something to the effect of I don't really care for casual encounters because I believe that if somebody really wants to be with me physically and I hold that boundary, that they'd be willing to rise to meet me in the other areas if they don't already hold those standards. And my friend laughed. My friend put in all caps, bah, ha, 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 ha. And this triggered me. For context, this friend kind of operates from an expectation that people will be dishonest, disloyal, and just has a lack of faith in people. And I found myself really strongly reacting to his response, not because he was shaking my belief, but because the contrast in my own belief was just undeniable. And what the conversation revealed wasn't about him. It was just a mirror showing me clearly that I believe opposite to him, and that I really believe that people are capable of growth, honesty, and rising to meet the standards of what matters to them. So, a little bit of the oh my god, the mind body spirit framework when it comes to love and intimacy. I have had four, I would say four partners that I've been physical with. And what I learned is that through them is that majority of the time they will activate either one or two of the three of the frameworks. And rarely will it be all three at once. So, what does this look like? A relationship that lacks passion means that mind and or spirit are present, but the body is absent. It's just connection without aliveness. Whereas something casual that lacks emotion is body only, maybe spirit in some capacity, but mind tends to be absent. And it feels good in the moment, but it can feel really empty afterwards, which is typically how I feel if I engage in something that is purely casual. So, what I am holding out for is something, someone, something, someone that activates all three simultaneously. And the difference between that is how it makes you feel in the moment. If it can make time stop completely almost, and everything becomes heightened, kind of like being high, but you're fully present in it, and you're not high. Maybe you are high. I don't know. I haven't had I haven't had any encounters on psychedelics, which is wild considering how much psychedelics I do. But I have heard from other people that it gives that same euphoric kind of experience that I am talking about when I say that the mind, body, and spirit are all activated. So let's hope that I get into. Uh, I mean, I would assume that I would choose a partner that would be into that. Let's hope. Um, but yeah, most people only experience two out of three, and they call it enough. But after you know what it feels like to engage all three, it's really hard to unknow it and to settle for less. And I think we see this all the time. We have there's so many people, especially with the way that I guess dating works now as well. We have like with all the apps, it's so easily accessible if you just want something physical. And um yeah, it's very easy to go through that and then think that's enough for you. Or we see a lot of the opposite as well, where people will have a really long, and I think this is more common, people having a long term relationship that is lacking passion, but they chalk it up to, oh, I think a lot of people have this belief that once you're in a relationship for long enough that the passion kind of dies off, or the libido goes down. And I truly don't believe that that's completely true. I mean, in some capacity, like yes, you'll probably not do it every single day, depending on how high your libido is. But um, when it gets to it going from like weeks to months without doing it, I think I think that speaks I think that speaks more to a lack within the passion and the effort to having it done. And at least in my own experience, like I felt like that would happen when I wasn't feeling engaged mentally and or spiritually. And I think that, yeah, I think a lot of us just really hold this belief that that's a natural thing, and it's not, because there's plenty of people who have healthy active sex lives within their relationship that is consistent. And yeah, it's a matter of, especially after having kids, it's a matter of making time for it, right? If that's something that matters to you. Which I do feel like it should in some capacity if you're not asexual. Moving on from that though, um, I don't think that my standard is unrealistic. I think it's just really specific, and um, I think just a lot of people aren't typically willing to wait to hold out for that. And what this conversation specifically triggered for me as a wound is one around being misunderstood, because yeah, it just, I think in the beginning, I think the reason why I started to defend was because I was feeling misunderstood about that, because yeah, I just didn't understand why it was such a hard concept for this person to think about. But I also realized it was triggering a fear that I'm asking for too much. So sitting with it, I realized that my standard isn't my standard shouldn't fluctuate based on whether somebody validates it or not. And that at the end of the day, it's based on what I believe to be true and what I believe is aligned for me from a direct experience. And it's not that my friend was wrong, in it's just that his belief is based on his experience. And if he hasn't experienced something like that, it's hard for him to believe a different perspective, especially because I guess in having to believe that perspective, it has him have to look at himself. I really need to turn. Okay. so, so for somebody who has a baseline of, you see that moth? For somebody who has a baseline of betrayal and lack, will also accept the least when it comes to an intimacy on any of their at any level. They might not believe that they can have those things in the same person. And it doesn't mean that they are broken. It's just basically saying you can only recognize what you already believe is possible. So if you don't believe in the fact that people can change or that people can grow and rise to a level where they would be able to meet all three, then yeah, you won't believe that it's possible, and you won't meet that person because you'll just settle for what you think you can get, what you think is good enough. And this all ties back to the law of correspondence, which I have talked about many times on this channel and on other platforms. But it's the principle that as within, so without, as above, so below. Your inner frequency reflects your outer frequency. You can only attract what is in resonance with your your frequency or your self concept, what you believe. It doesn't matter what you want or what you set the standards for. It matters what you are. So what that means is that if you have standards for what you want in a person, you need to be you need to be holding that standard to yourself first. If you want somebody who is if you want somebody who pursues their passions, you should be pursuing your passions. If you want somebody to plan intentional time for you together, you should be setting aside time for you to do certain things. If you want honesty, you need to take every single opportunity you can to be truthful to others, but also to yourself. Because you can only, if you can give it to yourself and you set that standard, when somebody else comes in and they see what you do for yourself, they're just a bonus. They just help maintain what you already have for yourself. Um, so, that being said, I think there is a big distinction when it comes. I think there's a big distinction when it comes to needing versus just being able to receive. This moth. Moths signify transformation, but that's for a different video. I think actually, you know what? I think I have made a video on that on my TikTok. Um, yeah, that distracted me. Sorry about that. But sorry, this is going off of the tangent of when you find the right person, they are a bonus to what you are already doing. When you set the standards of what you want for yourself and what you're willing to provide for yourself, first of all, when somebody sees that, it signals to them immediately what your standards are. And they can decide from there if they are in a position where they can do that for themselves. I think a good example of this is I remember I was having a conversation with a guy at a function once, and I think I just asked him what his dreams were or what he wanted to do in life, and he said he wanted to own a business. So then I was like, "Oh, what kind of business?" And then he was like, "I don't know." And then I started to tell him about my dreams, and then immediately I could just see the hope fading from him. And so from there he said Like he was like, it was very nice to talk to you and it was very nice to meet you, and he left because he understood that he could not uphold the standard of being that or he couldn't match, sorry, that's the word. He couldn't match the standard of being that I was I was living in. He knew that at least in that moment or period of his life that he wouldn't be able to rise to meet that, and that's completely fine. But again, I don't believe that that means that nobody will. It's just about, are you, how patient are you when it comes to finding somebody who does that? And I think what I was about to go into when I'm talking about needing versus receiving is that a lot of the times when we are looking for someone to fill whatever void that we have, whether it be in physical intimacy or in emotional intimacy, a lot of the times when we're coming from when when we let the desire make the decision from a place of lack, we are willing to accept less than what we deserve, which in the moment or for a certain period of time might be sufficient. But at some point, you do get frustrated at the fact that there are other needs that you have that aren't being met. And so when you're willing to be patient enough, which I've made a video about this as well, I think specifically when it came to relationships, but um, yeah, it echoes what I'm saying here. So we'll bring it up again here. But when you're willing to be patient enough to see who will come in based on what signal you are emitting, then you're able to allow somebody to come match you because you're emanating a frequency of not necessarily needing. You're just able to receive because you give to yourself. You give it, if you can give yourself everything that you need. Again, somebody will come in and see what you're giving to you and they can assess whether they're able to deliver that already, whether they're willing to rise so that they can, can deliver that to you, or if they just know that they are not able to do that and they will leave you alone. And that's good. That is a good thing. I think when we're in a rush to be in a certain place or to have a certain partner, again, yeah, it doesn't serve us in the long run because either you're going to commit to something that you don't really feel fulfilled in and you don't want to commit to. Oh my god, why? It's making me want to look up the definition of a moth. I'll do that at the once I'm done talking about this. But yeah, you might end up locking into something that isn't completely fulfilling to you, and then later down the line, either you stay committed to that and you just allow yourself to stay unfulfilled, or you have to make that hard decision of feeling like you wasted time with that person, which I don't truly believe in. I believe nothing, everything happens for a reason and everything has its time and seasons. Everything is meant to be a learning lesson. So yeah, if it takes you that amount of time to learn it, then that's useful in the future. But I mean, there's a lot of things that you can avoid if you are just honest with yourself and set and keep your standards high and don't allow yourself to be impatient when it comes to long term these things are people long term decisions. I was There's a video that's coming to mind where this lady said something to the effect of people spend more time researching a house, like where they want to live, like in a house, than they do with a partner that they want to spend the rest of their lives with. And I think that's a really great way to think about it because when you're committing to a person, yeah, like you want somebody who is going to grow with you. You want somebody who understands what it means to not only meet understand your standards and meet them, but to also set high standards for themselves. You just want them to be a reflection of the highest self that you could be. So, yeah, don't compromise on that. And don't let anybody let you compromise on that. And also, just side note, that doesn't mean as well to have a laundry list of a bunch of superficial things and to close off and you know okay, maybe it cut me off because at the end of the day, have whatever standards you want. You shouldn't like nobody should tell you what you should or shouldn't hold out as a standard. But I do think that there is a point where it's like if you're getting way, way, way too specific and you have like way, way, way too many things, then it's like you just might be closing yourself off to people who might give you the best experience of your life over physical things or like not physical, sorry, superficial things. So I will end that off with saying that sexy sexy is an energy, not a body type. And yeah, if you would like to work on your self concept, if you want to work on the standards that you hold for yourself and for others, link in the description to work with me one on one. And if not, I want to thank you so much for listening to me. And I really hope this resonated with you. And until next time, goodbye. Okay, a little PS side moment. Just because I had mentioned that I wanted to talk about the moth thing. Um, so moths just like butterflies go through they represent transformation, but they are more of a quiet kind of transformation because they operate mostly at night. They're drawn to light, and whereas for a butterfly it's more of a visible transformation. So the fact that the moth was flying around while I'm talking about standards and holding yourself to standards, basically what that might represent is just that this are you able to live those standards when nobody's watching as opposed to when people are. And I think that fits beautifully with what we're talking about here because yeah, to live at and embody these standards without needing somebody to witness them. You saw that, my friend. um, is really what allows you to attract somebody who will be ready to see them. So yeah, be a moth.